Welcome to Deep History, the podcast that uncovers the hidden stories, side notes, and lesser-known facts behind the events and people you thought you knew. I'm Lee, and together with my partner Bob, I'll dig into the overlooked corners of history and bring the past to life in a whole new way. So grab your shovel. It's time to dig deep.
Okay, here we go, Lee. We are in
Microphones on.
The name of our podcast again is Deep History. I keep wanting to call it Deep Space Nine.
I don't think that's the right way to go.
Because we're a history podcast, right?
I mean, primarily, but also I think that Deep Space Nine thing's taken.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got great branding. Great branding. But
Hey, should we introduce ourselves?
I don't know.
I mean,
Do they care?
so the audience knows we just had a major audio failure because I'm the senior engineer and I'm terrible.
That explains it.
So we recorded the best podcast ever recorded in the history of the universe, and we lost it because I forgot to plug something in. So, that I feel bad. In fact, I'm about to cry. So let's change the subject.
So if Bob's a little
pissy.
pissy, if
Yes,
you get
I
a
am.
vibe that Bob's a little
I
pissy,
am.
that's because Bob is a little pissy,
And I'm always pissy, but now I'm much more.
really pissy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Deep History. And what this is about is really some uncovering and discovery of some really interesting historical facts today in the Dallas area. This
Facts?
is Dallas, Texas.
Are we calling them facts?
Oh, yeah, we had this discussion before. This could be some exaggerations or some uncertainty, but we'll round up the facts. Okay, so let's call it that. So we're professionals, as you'll see as this podcast goes.
Professional what?
Professional failures.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but we're pretty excited about this because we think this is some interesting information. And Lee, you did in the last podcast, the best podcast that we didn't record, you had a pretty nice description of what this was about. So I want to turn it over to you because I know you can't remember.
To try to remember what I said
Yes,
an hour ago.
yes.
Okay, perfect. So it was something along the lines of, we're going to put our best efforts out to help you learn more about stories you already think you know. So we want to bring you the deeper cuts from history. You know the stories that we're going to be talking about, but you might not know the facts that we're going to uncover. So we're going to look at it from a slightly different angle, and hopefully that will be rewarding enough that you keep coming back time and time again. And also that we are interested enough to continue doing this time and time again.
Right. So I think Lee, I agree with all that. So you got my blessing on it.
Excellent. We got Bloody Mary's coming.
Oh, yeah, Bloody Mary.
Excellent. Thank you.
And now's a good time because we're doing this again. Poor James is having to serve us through multiple podcasts. It's a good time to say thank you to James again, the bartender here at the
Jack of All Brewing in Bishop Arts here in Oak Cliff.
Yeah, in Oak Cliff, Texas. It's part of Dallas. But so both Lee and I live in this area, so this is convenient. But a bit about what we're doing with the podcast, we actually will be mobile with this cast. We will do it different locations that have some relevance to the topics. And today we have an interesting topic that everyone, for the most part,
I want to guess it, though. But I want to guess
because
what we're going to cover today.
Because you don't think it's interesting.
No, because I did it in the last podcast and I thought my shtick was great. So I want to revisit that because it was brilliant.
I don't trust your memory, but also you've got 12 Bloody Marys.
That's a good point. I don't remember what I said anyway. All right, let's go on. Go ahead. So no more.
Yeah.
We're not going to
no more
any
Lee.
more anticipation.
Yeah, that's
here.
already.
Let's just go ahead and crash right into the topic here.
Yeah. Speaking of crashing, let's talk about Bonnie and Clyde.
Let's do it.
Okay. So most everyone understands the story of Bonnie and Clyde, at least they think they do. But we did some additional digging through this. There's a tool that I now use because I'm a pretty young and hip guy. Okay. And actually, I'm neither young, but I am hip, right, Lee? And I discovered this thing called the internet that I've used to quickly uncover this morning in about 15 minutes some unknown topics about Bonnie and Clyde.
Netscape Navigator. There's a shout out for you.
Yes. Yeah. I was able to I had to dial in. Okay. My fax machine sent me some login information. I was able to.
You had 30 hours on your AOL CD.
Yeah,
I
still had.
those, right?
And most of the people listening to this podcast probably have no idea what AOL even is.
Oh God, that's a good point. So I just aged myself as well.
Yeah. It's not like you're spring checking. Just because I'm an old buzzard doesn't mean that you're.
You make me look young though.
Oh, well, thank you for that. At least I'll do something nice.
That's true.
But Bonnie and Clyde, much more to the story, okay? And obviously, at their time, they were quite the thing. They were quite the story. There's some reasons for that. We were going through the Great Depression. There was a lot of pressure in society, especially here in Dallas. There was a lot of poverty. There was just extreme angst and frustration. And I think previously, they used the term that they were a product of their times to some degree. And you have to think you were actually vouching for their level of violence. You felt like it was okay because
that's not how that went.
Okay. All right. Well, I got a little confused. But so we're not justifying the things they did, but it's good to kind of understand the situation they're in and the kind of society and their environment.
The environment's the perfect
That
word.
was the big word I needed to
right.
use. Yeah. That they were in. And I think that helps understand a bit the path that they took. But then we look at some of the unknown things. And one of them is, and it's like, I'd like to know more about their personality and really the nature of who they were, the nature of their character. And interesting to me is that Bonnie, Lee, believe it or not, you ready for this?
I'm ready. What do you got?
Bonnie was actually married prior to meeting Clyde.
You already told me that in the last recording we did.
Can you please act like you're surprised?
Yes. That, what? Bob, I had no idea.
Yes, I know. It's just fascinating. It's breaking news.
It is.
But
my jaw is on the floor.
She was married to a gentleman by the name of Roy.
Okay.
Because it's been a minute. I don't remember his last name, but he had quite the life too. He ended up in prison, but she was married at the age of guess.
They married young back then, but I wouldn't begin to be able to come up with a number.
Thank you. That was a better answer than the last one because you already know the answer.
You're welcome.
She was married at the age of 15. And
goodness.
Yes.
Even the second time around, that's still somewhat shocking. Yeah.
But, that was relatively common. Girls
you grew
were
up
married.
in Arkansas. I think that it's a little more common for you.
Well, it is.
Up here in
when
Dallas,
you're marrying your cousin, it was very common because then family knew each other. So you didn't have to go through a lot of introductions.
That's a good point. There wasn't a long waiting period.
Yeah. So, but Bonnie married Roy at the age of 15. And you think, well, that was a flippant marriage and didn't mean much. And that may be the case, but here's another interesting tidbit. Okay. So, when Bonnie and Clyde were assassinated, were killed.
Assassinated, I don't think is the right word there.
No, you're right.
Ambushed.
Ambushed.
Is fair, but assassinated.
Okay. When they were ambushed on their way to, by law enforcement officers, by the way. So it was justice. Okay.
In the state of Louisiana, no less.
Yeah. Right. There's justice in Louisiana.
Yes.
Okay.
That's just in.
So
I'm pissing off people in Arkansas and Louisiana. We're less than 10 minutes into this podcast. I've already taken shots.
Yeah.
I apologize, Arkansas and Louisiana.
Right. And because Lee is so superior, and you'll find in listening to this podcast that comes across, believe me. It's not necessarily true, but it comes across. So the interesting thing is that Bonnie was wearing her wedding ring. Okay. And it was not Clyde's wedding ring because they didn't know. They never got married. Okay. It was Roy's. She was still wearing Roy's ring. So
and Clyde was down with this.
Well, I didn't talk to Clyde personally, even though I was alive back then or close to it. No, I didn't have that conversation with him. But it is kind of interesting that you think that bothered Clyde at all? Or
I would think.
Or do you think that they just didn't care about society norms as much as
did Clyde know?
Think?
I mean, did Clyde even know?
Right. Well, the ring on her finger, I would think,
I don't know.
Okay.
She may have just said, "Hey, this is a." I'm guessing it wasn't a big
ring.
diamond.
I like to wear this.
I'm guessing it was not a big diamond engagement ring. I think you said in the last podcast, Roy was in prison. Bonnie was 15. It probably was like a little copper, I don't know. It probably was not a very fancy ring. She could have had Clyde snowed. He had no idea what it was. Now, the finger she wore it on, maybe, but
Right. Well,
I
I'm
don't know.
sure. You know, I think
Clyde might not have been savvy enough to pick up on it.
now you're questioning Clyde's intelligence.
Now I'm pissing off the Barrow family, is what you're telling me? God, I am on a streak.
But let's keep going with that. Now, there's one other thing, Lee, that could have tipped Clyde off that she had a previous love. I'm sure they talked about that she was still married, but it was a reminder. And you know where this reminder was? Let me ask you a question. Do you have any tattoos on your inner thigh? Just come clean right now.
I
It's
do
like
not. I do
Bob
not
and
have.
me forever.
No,
or, you
no,
know, Bob's the
Reed.
best. How about Bob?
No, I don't. Neither
okay.
one of those. None of them. None of my inner thighs happen to be tattooed.
Are you willing to show that and prove that?
I'll put a picture up on our podcast homepage.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Boy, will that bring in the viewers?
0
Yeah.
negative viewers.
So she actually had a tattoo of, it was something of the nature of Roy and I forever. Not I, but Roy and
Because that
forever.
would be poor grammar.
Yeah.
Roy and me forever.
Yeah.
I think was the proper way to say it.
Yeah. So, but because her grammar was not her specialty, I was going Roy and I.
Right.
But beyond that, that was a tattoo that's reflected at that time. Of course, she probably got it during the marriage, but that had to be a reminder. Clyde. I mean, and so there was some recognition there. So it's just an interesting thing. I'm not saying it's scandal.
Well,
You know,
but I mean,
but-
it is pretty scandalous. You know, a woman having a tattoo on her inner thigh in the late 20s, early 30s.
That's kind of,
I feel like that's
be a bit of a prude here, Lisa.
yes, I'm.
Do you think that was
widely known as a prude?
Just one more question on this point.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that was her worst crime?
Oh, the tattoo, the inner thigh
Yeah.
tattoo. No, I think it's gonna escalate. I think it's gonna escalate before it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, again, back to the times, there was a lot of pressures we talked about within that environment, within society, and it's interesting to also know what Clyde's upbringing and that would contribute to his life of crime and how much of this was character and you know all those kinds of things. But I do know that Clyde was actually rejected from the Navy when he tried to enlist early on, and I'm wondering how much that rejection, you know, affected him. So here's a poor kid who, and God, it sounds like I'm justifying something that's not, but it's interesting to know, to me, why this evolved, why they got together,
Right.
and how, and not only what they did, but how they did it, which seemed to be very impulsive and very reactionary. Okay, so but there's Clyde. You know, he's rejected. He doesn't get in the Navy. He had some residual conditions from previous illness as a child, and he goes through that process. And his first crime, committedly, okay, again is one. Yeah, I think there's some similarities here. There's one that you're probably familiar with that you may have committed, and that he did not return a rental car. That was his.
What makes you think that I would not have returned a rental car?
Just out of, you're pissed off because you didn't get the right audio, or you know the comfort level was not to your standards. The things that you,
So I just kept the car.
or you just returned it, you ditched it side of the road, whatever.
Okay,
You
that
know,
is another
You're a
possibility.
bit of a prima donna. So
right.
you know, I would think. I actually, side note, had a friend of mine that was late to catch a flight one time. This was before 9/11, and he couldn't return the car in time, so he returned it to the curb in front of the airport, thinking that would work.
How in the hell would he think that would work?
I think
You're abandoning a car at an airport, not even at the car rental agency.
I don't think it went well.
Is this friend
So-
you?
What's that?
Is this friend really you?
No, I thought it was brilliant what he did, though. I wanted to emulate it, but I didn't have the courage.
Well,
so, but
Did you have bail money?
did I have who?
Bail money? I'm guessing that
I
friend
had
probably ended up with
He,
some
he did not
challenges.
call me. He had some challenges.
Yeah.
Let's just say there was a bit of a fine.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
imagine so.
Yeah, I think for the price of the car. So,
That's
all right. So that, yeah.
All right, so that was so not returning a rental car was the spark that started the
And I can
wildfire of Clyde
I can
Barrows.
see how that just takes you right into murder, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it seemed like your next crime would probably be murder, but it wasn't.
Oh, it
Let
was
me
not.
continue.
No. What else did he do? what happened next.
So when you think of Thanksgiving, what do you think about?
Lots of food, Cowboy football game, and asleep by like 4 p.m.
Okay. You're close with lots of food. Turkey. All right.
Okay.
He and his brother stole a truckload of turkeys. So instead of going around in a murder
Live
robbery,
turkeys are
they had to
disgusting
have one
creatures.
more. Yeah. But the point is, here's Clive. He's doing this petty crime, if we want to call it that.
Mhm.
All right. Again, things you've probably done.
Right. Yes.
As hobbies,
Sure. Yes.
whatever in your life. And
Right.
it leads to other things. And eventually he gets into prison. Okay. And that obviously hardened him. And there is a general consensus that is really what turned Clyde. That's certainly prison. And prison now is bad. Prison then was no cup.
Back then was, yeah, sure.
Right. So between prison and the background and society's influence and the environment, I think they were right. And obviously from his character flaws, whatever you may want to call them, it seemed like there's pressure there that led him into meeting someone like Bonnie, who could be as impulsive as he was.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And go down a path of beginnings to commit more serious crimes.
They just kind of fed off of each other and it spiraled, and
That seems to be,
know,
that seems to be the thing, right? But to me, the real question is that Bonnie, Bonnie was not a criminal. She obviously had a difficult time. She was a waitress in a local restaurant, married early at 15.
Yeah.
You had that kind of failure. But from what I understand,
getting married at 15 is a sort of failure. Is that what you're saying?
I just think getting married at all.
Right.
But no, 15.
All right.
That part's fine. But
Okay.
yeah. So all that, I think Bonnie was the kind of lady that was looking for an outlet and some excitement in her life.
Okay.
All right. And here comes Clyde. Right. And he could talk the story. He had the background and the history of stealing turkeys and, rental cars. And I mean,
She was like, I can mold this guy into something.
Yeah,
This guy knows his way
Let's
around a
pretend-
petty crime.
I mean, what is more attractive to a girl than someone that steals turkey trunks?
that smells like turkey and is covered with
Yeah,
feathers.
yeah. So you can see how these things came about. So I just think there was so much pressure, and timing had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You had a bad guy, Clyde. No doubt he was turning into being a criminal.
You're right.
And you had Bonnie, who was susceptible and looking for some good times. She was a poet as well. So they merged together. So from that, they began their life of crime, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, and you and I talked about this on our last failed recording, but something else that's really
bringing that
interesting. I'm going to keep bringing it up, probably for the duration of our friendship, but
should be over.
So Clyde actually lived about 500 yards away from where I live today. So he lived in a small house on Singleton. It was actually a gas station. And his parents lived there. He lived in the back of the gas station. And today, Clyde is buried in a cemetery that is less than 2 miles away from that house where he grew up.
Wow.
So, it's amazing that Bonnie and Clyde became this national story, even international story. And Clyde lived and is buried within the same 2 mile it's probably not even 2 miles, sliver of West Dallas. But, Bob, you and I went there, a month and a half ago, probably, to check out the cemetery where Clyde is buried. And there's lots of memorabilia. Anybody can visit the cemetery, and they set out different things. You remember some of the things that we saw when we were there?
I saw a lot of weeds. All right. Some crickets.
A lot of weeds. Yeah.
I saw
more specific to like
cardinal.
Clyde's little tombstone.
I wasn't paying attention.
You were not paying attention.
No.
So the bullets, right? There were lots of
That's right.
bullets
You're right.
that they put there.
Yeah.
There were, flasks of booze. I've been there a couple of different times. I can't remember when you and I went, there was a flask, but People
No,
would
we
leave
know.
flasks,
Yeah, you're right.
coins,
Yeah,
right?
there were
Cigarettes. We would
There were
see.
cigarettes. There were small booze bottles, like you used to get on the airplane.
Yeah, like
now.
airplane. That's
Yeah,
what we
right.
saw when we were there.
And you're right. There were cigarettes, and
So people are still celebrating
yes,
Clyde Barrow,
Right.
in 2025.
and
it's
some
crazy.
sort of homage or honoring. him,
Yeah,
which
and is it misplaced? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not for me to say necessarily, but
Well, I'll say it. I think it's kind of ridiculous, but people are drawn to outlaws. They're drawn to romantic characters, and I think if nothing else, with Bonnie and Clyde, more than almost all the other criminals at that time, right? And again, I was alive, so I remember some of this. John Dillon and what was the
Dillinger,
Dillinger? Yeah, right.
Dillinger,
Yeah. Yep. Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, John Dillinger.
Yeah, right. And Al Capone, all those. I think for Bonnie and Clyde, they were obviously the most romantic, but probably the most romanticized.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they were two lovers on the run, living their life, and I think that's still appealing to people today.
Yeah.
Right. Because people need that kind of outlet. They want to have something other than
It's escapism,
mundane.
right?
It's
I mean,
escapism.
their world around them was not exactly sunshine and roses, right? And so reading about, at least in the early days, their exploits was romanticized. It was escapism for people that were delighted to see people getting one over on the man.
Right.
But then things escalate.
Right.
And down the road, I think the tide turned against them from a
Right.
publicity standpoint. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think of them as bank robbers, right? Which were so many were at that time, but they really weren't. And in a way, this is a bit of their downfall, but it's also a reflection of the way they behaved. When they needed money, it seemed like they would rob what was in front of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Versus, looking at anything more complex or more strategic.
They were
such as a
opportunistic,
bank.
not strategic
Opportunistic. But isn't that a reflection of who they were in their life? Because again, they were these runaway lovers who were willing to commit crimes, but
they're writing their story day by day, right?
But that story got darker and darker.
Yeah.
And society began to, I think, turn against them.
I think the desperation, desperation leads
Right.
to, more concerning behaviors that then I think, like we said, we kind of, then the tattoo.
Okay.
Got a nice callback.
Yep.
But no, I think they started feeding off of each other. And I think this whole thing probably got out of both of their controls.
Right.
I think it probably evolved into something that even the two of them were like, whoa, shit, what's going on?
Right.
They're seeing
You
the
think so?
members
Do
of the
you think
gang
that- did you think
getting
they-
shot, right? Buck Barrow ends up getting killed.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that when Clyde stole that first truckload of turkeys, he was like, someday I'm going to be shot down in an ambush in Louisiana.
And nor did he probably think he even cared. I
I don't think he planned that far ahead, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because it sounded like, from some of the conversations we've had, they would rob a general store because they were almost out of gas and they knew they needed to go get a little bit of money. And, they'd go in there and rob a store and get $5.
Right.
They'd put gas in the car and they'd haul ass down the road.
So
it's not exactly a strategic way to go about your crime spree, but
right. Unlike something you would be much
I'd
more
think it
strategic. is
through.
what you're
Yeah,
saying.
no,
You
I
would-
definitely
okay.
think it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
So you think that all this is a reflection of who they were personally, obviously, and their personality. Obviously, to me, they read their own stories. Okay. They loved the papers.
Yeah.
They liked the picture. And, Bonnie was a poet as well. Or at least she considered herself to be one.
Right.
And she actually, I think, was fairly disappointing. And the most popular one was the one she wrote 2 weeks before their death, right?
Oh, do you have a copy of that?
I just happen to have here on my phone, if I know how to turn it on.
There once was a man from Nantucket. It starts.
Yeah. My name is Bonnie. His name is Clyde. Who would have thought that then we died?
Oh, wow.
Now
I apologize for that.
That was on the spot.
That was
Poetry.
terrible. Yeah.
Roses are red.
Nope. Let's moving on quickly.
Okay, so let me read this point from her. But isn't this a little reflective of what you're talking about? Okay. And then they were making their story, but they were reading their story, and there was a sense of,
They're buying into the hype a little bit.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think this propelled them to some degree. Now they may have been more desperate, as you said, after Bug got
Right.
arrested and those kinds of things.
All right.
But they didn't. They probably felt in a way that they're immortal, or they didn't care, and they bought into the glory of dying. Well, glorious death.
Okay.
Which
All right.
they didn't die in glory. No one does.
Right.
But they did die in a high degree of violence.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So Lee, I'm still working. I'm looking for this point. Okay. And I have this here under poetry. And- oh, here it is.
Perfect.
She wrote the trills in and finished with this verse. Someday they'll go down together. They'll bury them side by side.
Didn't
To
happen.
few, it will be grief. To the law, a relief. But it's death for
Bonnie and Clyde.
good guess. Very good thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, here's a interesting little tidbit for those of you that might not be from the Dallas area. They are not buried together.
why is that?
They are buried a good 12 to 15 miles apart.
Really?
Bonnie in a different
But they're both
cemetery.
buried.
Which
Obviously, Clyde's here because you
yeah,
basically
so Clyde's
his
off
neighbor.
Fort Worth Avenue
right.
and right.
And,
And
you worship the altar of Clyde.
I don't think that's no.
Okay, but where's Bonnie? So
Bonnie's over. She's not terribly far away from. I want to call it the Love Field, more the Bachman Lake area, over off Webb Chapel. For
Okay.
those of you that may know that area, and
know.
her cemetery is much more run down, believe it or not,
Really?
than Clyde's is.
really, because Clyde's was not that prestigious.
Yeah,
either.
no,
I mean,
it's
But I was impressed that it was maintained. So I take
Yeah.
that back. It was fine.
it was
All right.
fairly well maintained.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bonnie's family refused to allow her to be buried with Clyde.
Oh,
I know.
That's
So the
so
love
sad.
story and Bonnie's prophecy through her poetry did not come to pass. Did not come to pass.
So these are very sad things, but I think they're they're not really.
I didn't.
You care?
I'm somewhat unmoved.
Yeah, me too. It's been a while.
Yes, I've had time to process it. So I think
But I'm getting over the shock of their death.
that's right.
So what other questions you have for me, since I'm obviously the expert?
So I do have one question for you.
I think we're out of time.
When he died, how many toes did Clyde Barrow have, Bob?
Well, let's put it somewhere between 1 and 10.
I don't think 10 is
Well,
the
what-
correct answer. 1 and 9?
What's the normal number of toes?
You are from Arkansas, so that's a reasonable question. 10 is the normal number.
Would you
of
consider
toes.
web toes?
as
Yeah,
just
a
like
single
like
or
a super
full-
toe?
Yes.
Just like one super
Yeah, yeah.
toe?
I got these web feet.
Uh-huh. Right.
They're good for paddling.
But no, so let's go back to this. So you were telling a story earlier
Yes.
about Clyde
Right.
trying to get out of work detail at
Right.
prison. What did
I
he
think
do?
it's more detail, and I think it was also facilitate him making more progress towards release. I don't know. But
I don't think toelessness actually is factored into parole.
what's a lot of pity? Don't you
He's
feel
got
sorry
fewer
for someone
toes than he
missing
had
a
when he
toe?
walked in here, so he's clearly redeemed. We need to put him
My
back out
answer
to
to you
society.
was somewhere between 1 and 10. I didn't say he had 10. I know he chopped off, cut, I think with a shovel. Again,
Jesus, that is
facts
gruesome.
is not really our specialty here on this podcast.
Right.
But he's self-inflicted, okay? And so he removed a couple of toes or a single toe, but he had enough to limp around with the rest of his life, okay?
Yeah,
So
and
he
that
did-
shows a lack of strategy. I mean, toes are kind of the unsung hero of the whole upright walking
I have a
operation.
sense, Lee, that you're being critical of poor Clyde.
I am.
Okay.
No, spot on.
And
That's a good pickup.
Did maybe his judgment level
Was poor.
to cut off
Mhm.
his toes?
That was Bloody Mary.
Have you ever been? Let me ask you a question. Were you alive in 1930s?
No, Bob, I
Okay.
was not.
Were you in prison?
My dad
In the
was. My dad was alive in the 1930s. So was my mom.
Well, okay, that's impressive.
Yes, thank you.
Were you in prison in the 1930s?
I mean, still, also no.
Okay. can you imagine and understand what prison life was like in the 1930s? It was not a piece of cake. It's not
I've
a
read
piece of cake
books.
now,
Yeah.
but it was pretty rough.
Are you suggesting that if you had been in prison in the 1930s, you'd lop off a toe or two?
I would cut my head
As
off.
part of your
If it got-
strategy
yeah,
to-
yeah.
to get
It
out?
may be a flawed strategy, but I
It's
just don't.
flawed.
I don't
Yes.
think I'd bode well in prison.
It's flawed, sir.
Yes.
It's flawed.
All right, so Lee, this has been extremely interesting and entertaining for me, but not for anyone else. I've appreciated
I
it. So
fear
thanks
that
for
that
doing
may be
this.
the case. Yeah, we may not have entertained quite the way we anticipated or hoped. You guys, I'm telling you, you should have heard the first recording that we laid down.
No,
It was that we failed to lay down, that we thought we were laying down.
I was much better. Lee, I don't think he got any better on the second
No,
one.
probably not.
But I was better.
I'm many more Bloody Marys in now
Yeah,
than I
now we don't
intended to be
care.
because we had to do an entirely
I'm hungry.
separate
Man, I'm
broadcast
hungry.
or podcaster.
So a couple things to think about. This
Little
little
housekeeping
audience,
here,
our
wrapping up?
fans. Can we
Yeah.
call them fans yet?
I do not think so, sir.
So for our fans, we will be remote. That's the way we'll do this. We'll go to areas that we think are relevant to the topic at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's Bonnie and Clyde. We're here in Oak Cliff. We're actually going to be with some future casts. You'll see some other interesting spots. And as part of that, we want to thank our sponsors, even though they don't know they're our sponsors.
I think
Because they-
sponsors, might be a
It might be
little
stretch.
overstated.
Yes.
Our,
I'd like
our,
to
our
thank-
hosts,
yeah, our
the
hosts.
people that are allowing us to actually sit at a table, pay for our drinks, and kind of just engage in commerce
You know
while
why-
recording a podcast.
Do you understand why I want to do this? Right?
Yeah, I think
Why
it's
I wanna
shameless
do-
commercialism, I believe.
Well,
but
Yeah, but now we're
No.
talking about the podcast. Ultimately, I want us to be able to go places that would buy our drinks just because we're promoting their business and we're such influencers.
uh-huh.
You know,
Yep. Yeah, well, clearly.
TikTok is
Yeah.
next, buddy. We're going to dominate. But where are we, Lee? Tell us
So,
again.
yes, no. So we are today, again, at Jack of All Brewing in Bishop Arts, and it's right next door to Trades Delicatessen. So Jack of All Brewing at Trades Delicatessen, Jack of All Trades. Get it? Took Bob months to actually put those two things together. But so it's over off of West 7th, again, in Bishop Arts. Come in, ask for James, let them know that Lee and Bob
Yeah, he's
sent him
good,
your
isn't
way.
he? Yeah, he's great.
He's
He let us-
fantastic.
he
Always
actually-
takes great care of us.
Yeah, he let us sit here in the corner.
Uh-huh. They hadn't
Right.
even opened up yet, and he was kind enough to let us start
Yeah, but I
start
think
getting
we're about to
everything
get
set
kicked
up.
out.
And it's possible.
So this has been fantastic.
I've really enjoyed
the
it.
next one.
Yeah. I mean, after a year of kind of talking about doing this, we finally pulled the trigger.
So this is what 2025. I think next one should be what year?
Yeah, we need to get one of these out. 1 30-minute podcast a year, I think,
Okay.
would be ideal.
right.
Yeah.
Because I'm so young, I'm sure I've got at least
You've got at least 3 podcasts left in you at that
Yeah,
pace.
and
so-
that's president, buddy. We better hurry up. Well,
No.
out for now. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you, Lee.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for digging into history with us today. If you enjoyed the episode, help us uncover more ears. Rate and review Deep History wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps more than you know. And if you've got a weird fact, buried story, or historical rabbit hole you think we should explore, drop us a line at realdeephistory@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep digging.